Morning, everyone. It's me, Butterfly Spirit 314. So, guys, I'm about to head out to work today, and I wanted to tell you guys about some of the progress that I'm making with listening. So, yesterday, I was at work, and there were a few different situations where listening actually worked in my favor. Because normally, when I'm talking to people, I do have this thing where, like, in conversation, I may be likely to not listen as much as I should. So, some progress I made since I've been reading the book. What is the name of that book? The Secret Art of Listening. I believe that's the name of the title of the book. What I've noticed yesterday was that I have been giving people my undivided attention. Um, and most people say, well, it's common sense. But what goes along with a part of that is me actually like surrendering my needs in that moment and really kind of giving my attention to that person so they know that they're being heard and that what they're saying is important to me. And the author talks about that in the book where when we listen, it's important that we surrender our needs and listen to that other person because a person, that's talking to you, when they're talking to you, they're giving you information that they want you to know. And if you are, let's say you're hearing them, but you're not listening to them, they can feel that, and that can weigh on the conversation, because I know when people aren't listening to me, like if they are like their attention's diverted or whatever. So the progress I made yesterday was I noticed that when coworkers of mine were coming over to me and talking to me about things, like my manager, for example, um, I knew that there was something I was working on at work, and I knew that another person had finished up a goal or task or whatever work. I already knew they did that because I read an email. And then what happened is my manager came over, and then she said, oh, such and such finished up this goal or this task or whatever. Now, even though I knew it, um, I didn't say anything, which is progress. Because normally I would say, oh, well, I know they did that because I read the email. But instead of me doing that, I kind of stayed quiet and like, instead of me like being a smart ass and saying that, I just listened and I was like, even though I knew in my head, I'm like, I know this person said this, but I'm just gonna kind of wait here and listen here for a second. Just like stay quiet so that one, my manager knows she's being heard, you know, two, you know, the conversation, goes rather smooth. And three, I come off like, wow, I'm patient, I'm considerate in things because it feels good when, somebody comes over and says something to us, you know, and for them, it's comforting for them when they feel heard. And I know if somebody is listening to me and they're taking the time to listen to me, it really makes the difference to me. So when my manager came over, I really just wanted to, let her know, hey, I hear you. Not just saying I hear you, but performing the actions of letting her know that I heard her, even though I knew the information, you know, because sometimes it's not about being right. And that's a big step for me. It's not about being right. What it's about is it's about, you know, in conversation, it's about being there, being present. And I think that was something I was doing, which I don't normally do, which is be present. Now I can still get excited and, want to jump in and share something, like I was talking to another coworker, and he was sharing something with me and things. And I knew that I saw that he had made a mistake or something. And I noticed that he seemed really frustrated or whatever. And I heard him, and I did what the book said, was just listening behind like listening behind a person's words to try to understand what they're like what they're feeling, you know. And I knew that the coworker was frustrated and upset because they made a mistake. And I just kind of listened to him and stuff. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't mean anything or whatever." And what I did in that situation with him, and I was like, "Hey, I know you weren't trying to lash out at me. I know you had a circumstance, something you was working on, you made a mistake on or whatever. You're not directing it towards me. You're just frustrated or whatever." Now, in situations, you know, and this happens, you know, I'm still working on this, but there are times where I take things personally when I shouldn't take it personally. And in that situation yesterday, I didn't take his frustration personally. I just was paying attention to what was going on. If I didn't pay attention to what was going on, and then, you know, he was cussing and stuff like that, I might have thought it was had something to do with me if I wasn't paying attention. But because I was present, I was listening, and I was listening like to what he was trying to express, you know, emotionally, like that he felt like he made a mistake, he was upset or whatever and stuff, and that he's just trying to have an outlet for his emotions or whatever. Because I was paying attention to all of those things, you know, it made for a more pleasant conversation, you know. Same thing with my manager. I knew the information already and I could have told her so. Normally I would have kind of blurted it out, but instead I was like, no, let her express what it is she needs to say, you know, and, you know, get it off her chest what she needs to say. You know what I'm saying? So she knows, hey, I care about what you're saying. You know, I value when you come and bring me important information because there might be something I don't know, you know, and things. And also, I think what made it pleasant too was that when I went to her for help with something, you know, she was patient with me and listened to me too, which I think, you know, I have my assumptions about, but I think that, you know, everybody has their means to a way. Yesterday, I want to tell you guys about something that happened when I came home. So, yesterday, when I came home, there are these people staying at the Airbnb next door. The guy had just let his dogs out when I came home. And I don't like when people have dogs, you know, in the yard next to my backyard. I don't like that. So, what happened is that while I was in the house, my neighbor across the alley saw that those dogs at the Airbnb, like one of them had jumped the fence. I had came back out because I was going to move my car and move my car to the front. And so, as I was coming back out, the neighbor across the alley, I've never said anything to him ever since they've lived there. And the guy across the alley said, "Hey," he said, "you know, one of that big gray dog that was in that yard next to yours, that dog jumped the fence, right? If I hadn't been listening, right, and I had just been in my own little world or whatever, and I hadn't heard him, I could have got bit by a dog, right? But because I heard that guy say, 'Hey, that dog jumped the fence,' you know, the gray one or whatever," I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I did go to move my car, but instead of just moving it, I was cautious as I went to get in my car. You know, got in my car as fast as possible, moved my car around to the front like I needed to and stuff. And also, in turn, I was able to let the guy at the Airbnb know next door, "Hey, your dog jumped the fence, it's running up and down the alley." And then the guy was like, "Oh, shoot, I didn't know that." Right. Now, I think the guy was irresponsible to just leave his dogs back there running around. But, you know, my action, like the guy's action back there, plus my action of letting that guy know that his dog had jumped the fence, that could have saved, you know, someone, you know, from getting injured, whether it be a child, adult, or whoever. And in fact, it was like teamwork, you know, between me and that, you know, me and the old man across the alley. You know what I'm saying? Because there are kids in this neighborhood that there's the little boy across the street that has a little small little dog or whatever. And I'm so glad that that little boy wasn't outside or anything because there's normally kids out, you know, in the afternoon and stuff and like the evening and stuff. So I'm just glad that I was able to, thanks to that old man, and me listening to him, I was able to act fast to let that guy know, hey, your dog just jumped the fence. So he knew, so he can get that dog in. And once the guy knew that his dog jumped the fence, he ran out to the backyard. Hey, he got the dog, brought the dog in. So this is how important listening is, and this is some of the progress I'm making on it. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Bye-bye, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.